Welcome to the first in our series entitled Midrash as a psychological backstory to the Bible. Our guest therapist today is Yisrael Frankel. I will post below something about your background and your training. I know that you did a lot in trauma therapy and marital therapy. I hope those two aren't the same, but what I would like to do is first, very briefly, talk about the word Midrash, because nobody knows what that is. But according to Jewish tradition, when the Bible was first given, starting on Mount Sinai about 3,300 years ago, there was an oral tradition that came along with it. And that oral tradition was meant to be passed on, student to teacher. But at some point, as situation got very dire in Jewish history, about 1,700 years ago, it was written down. People may have heard of other books that were started out as part of the oral tradition, like the Mishnah or the Talmud, but the Midrash is, again, one of those books. But as opposed to the Midrash and Talmud, which focus very much on Jewish law, so the Midrash has parables and enigmatic statements, all purposely camouflaging its moral message to the reader, because it wants the reader to have to figure it out. And basically, the Midrash likes to uncover the emotional issues that are driving the biblical narrative. That's why I call this the psychological backstory to the Bible. So we're going to start with one, which is certainly no exception to this rule. I'm going to first read you a passage from the Bible. It says in Genesis chapter 2, verse 31, it says, "And God saw that all he did, and behold, it was very good." So what's going on there? I mean, the animals and mankind was created on the sixth day of creation. This oral tradition has a very strange comment on this biblical verse. It basically says that likewise, besides mankind and animals being created on this day, also suffering, failures, and hardship were created on the sixth day of creation. And yet, as I said, the Bible calls that very good. Right? God, saw everything he did, and behold, it was very good. So, what could possibly be very good about suffering, failures, and hardship? That's what we're going to grill our guest therapist. So, for a deeper understanding, I'll turn to Yisrael Frankel, our guest therapist, to give us some more enlightenment about what emotional backstory, what is the Midrash really saying by this very unusual comment?
The secret of understanding very good is to understand that there's a process. And things in context have a much deeper meaning than they do if you look at them just in the moment. So in the moment, what I experience is, I'm in pain right now. I did this thing and it didn't work out and it really hurts. So that context is really not something that I want. But if you understand the grand scheme of things and where your failures actually build you to a much better place, and the pain in your life teaches you things about how your relationship should be and how your life should be, and when you get those things fixed, your relationship is so much more enhanced. You become a better person. You have so much more meaning in your life. You're so much more accomplishments because of the failures that you have. You realize that in context, it was actually worth it. And you can actually say thank you to the things that were painful because of the places that they brought you. So, and if you wouldn't have that, you'd have good, but you wouldn't have very good.
Since we're very much seem to be talking around the issue of helping somebody, feel safe in their pain, and you're a therapist, can you connect the dots for me and tell me how this process, which is, I guess, is an internal process, is it also used in therapy to help people cope with things?
So actually, it's the fundamentally way to bring out healing is through pain, and I'll explain why. Because fundamentally, what drives us, what the definition of a person being healthy in the core means that their core needs are flowing to the point at which they look for them and they find ways in life to get them met. So for our core needs are love, respect, safety, pleasure, if these needs are flowing inside of me, my assumption is, yeah, this is what I need, and I'm going to go find it in my life. And if it doesn't happen in this moment, in this relationship, I'll find a different relationship. That's a healthy situation. What happens in a trauma situation is people learn from life experiences that it may be that theoretically I would love to be loved, or theoretically I love to be safe, but that's not the way the world really works. The world really works that you're not going to be loved, and it's not a safe place, and you're not going to be respected. And that's when people live from trauma as victims, and their whole life is projected through that lens, and they find themselves, manifesting those relationships, being in toxic relationships where the person is actually not loving them, and people are disrespecting them, and it's like, yeah, this is the way my life is. I expect life to be like that. And so the fascinating thing is that the way to get to healing is actually to go back into the pain. Mm-hmm. And the reason why pain is the cure is because pain and desire are two halves of the same coin. And when a person can feel the pain of something, it means they haven't actually given up on that need. Mm-hmm. And to the point, and usually has to do with childhood, but the place inside of them in their memory, which is usually occupied by a certain space of time, where it's a childhood experience, but it doesn't have to be. It's a certain space in the person where they still feeling, this really hurts. I'm really uncomfortable in the situation of not being loved. This relationship in which my father, my mother, or this situation, the other situations that I'm in, my caretakers, are not treating me properly, the fact that it hurts means that there's a part of me that rejects this way of life and says, I don't want this experience. I want to be loved. I'm in pain. What do I really want? I want you to respect me. I want you to love me. I want to be safe. And that pain is a rejection of this callous way of living. Like, yeah, I'm just, it's not a safe world. Hell no. You better love me. You better take care of me, because my pain is reflecting of a deep desire inside of me that I'm not willing to back down and say, no, you're not going to love me. You must love me. And when a person processes that experience and steps forward and allows the pain to flow inside of them and bring out the actual natural desire that is behind it, they can break that whole way of living, that whole way of death that they've experienced upon themselves, which they've said they've given up, and they can it's sort of a way of reincarnation of death, at a certain level of death they had inside of themselves. And when they get to that place of pain and they rebuild their life from that place of pain, they step into a new healthy reality. Of course, after that, there's a lot of work of integration, but the shift of being lived as a victim and assuming life is going to be traumatic to the point in which you're not willing to accept that almost happens instantaneously when you get to the right space to do it in. And there's, a lot of steps of safety to get there, but when you get to that shift, then the person actually holds themselves totally differently, and they are now able to integrate many different things in their life that they before would have rejected and assumed wouldn't have happened. They now search them out, and they now find ways in their life where they can get these needs met, because they're assuming, I must get this. I'm not willing to live in another way.
Great. So how would you sum up what the Midrash is trying to get across?
Yeah, I would say that it's giving you a promise that you might think that the fact that you have bad built in you, and if painful experiences built in life, that may be a way of assuming that your life's going to look like that. And the truth is, it's not. The truth is, it's just a passage. The end game is very good, not just good, very good, through the fact that there was painful experiences.
Excellent. So what I hope we'll continue doing in this podcast is take even small phrases from the Bible, something, a word or two, and show how the oral tradition, the Midrash, expands those words to a whole other dimension, something much deeper, just as we did here with the verse, and God saw that everything he did, and behold, it was very good. I mean, you could read very good and think, oh, that's so nice. God was pleased with his creations. But with the overlay of the Midrash, we get a much deeper dive. God is cluing you in as to how the world works and how adversity can be a very good teacher and put your life on a very good trajectory. That's what I hope to show in this podcast, Midrash as a psychological backstory to the Bible. I hope you'll like, comment, and subscribe. We'll have more conversations like this coming up. Yisrael, thank you very much for bringing such depth to what might seem to have been a simple phrase and turning it into something far more meaningful.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.